1 p.m. Jennifer, may we please have a roll call?
Trustee Baser?
Here.
Trustee Buda?
Here.
Trustee Christian?
Here.
Trustee Oliver?
Here.
Trustee Patel?
Here.
Trustee Spector Bishop?
Here.
And Trustee Unical?
Yes. Moving on to the consent agenda, are there any items that anyone would like to have removed from the consent agenda and moved into new business? Seeing none, is there a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented?
So moved.
Thanks, Maura. Is there a second? Thanks, Janet. Jennifer, can we have a roll call vote?
Trustee Baser?
Yes.
Trustee Budin?
Yes.
Trustee Christian? Trustee Oliver?
Yes.
Trustee Patel?
Sorry.
Trustee
Yes.
Christian?
Yes.
I thought you would like that.
Yes.
Trustee Spector Bishop?
Yes. Oh, sorry. Also drinking.
Your
My
brain
brain
is
is
tight. This is
toast.
why we don't let people have dinner. Okay.
So I'm a little understood.
Moving into public comment, it looks like we do have a member of the public here tonight. Daniel, would you like to say anything?
Sure. Should I stand? It doesn't matter.
Yes.
Okay.
Please.
All right. Hi, my name is Dan Wrench. I'm here because the election process is starting up, we're ramping up. I'll be chairing the library subcommittee for the caucus, and I did that last time, and so I know a few of you from that. And so I just want to say hello, and that's all. And and if I don't know you, let's say hi, and we'll connect.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for being here.
Sure.
Okay, moving into staff reports.
So I'm very excited to introduce all of you to Janelle Duffy. She is our volunteer coordinator and HR assistant. She has been with us for just about 9 months now and is here today to talk about the relaunch of the volunteer program, which was one of our goals this year as part of the strategic plan in terms of community engagement. So I will turn things over to Janelle to talk to us a little bit.
Thanks, Kate. So just to introduce myself, I am a Northbrook resident. I've been here about 13 years. And I'm also a library patron. I've been here about 13 years. And my background is I have an MBA from Kellogg, and I worked primarily in brand management in the toy industry. And so I was at Mattel and worked on the Barbie brand for several years. And then when we moved here, I continued working there, took a little time off to raise my family, and then was back in the educational toy industry up in Vernon Hills. From a volunteer perspective, not surprisingly, a lot of my volunteer activity has also been educationally based. So I've been very involved in Northbrook Community Nursery School, which is, I think, where I first met Maura. And then was involved in the PTOs at Westcott School and at Maple School. And so when I was looking for my next position, I was just really excited about getting involved in my local community. And so when this position opened up, it was a perfect marriage of kind of my business background, but then also that volunteering that had come to mean a lot to me in the community of Northbrook. So love to talk a little bit about the volunteer program in terms of its goals, and then I'll tell you a little bit about the accomplishments, and then if anyone has any questions, love to hear them. So as you're all aware, the volunteer program is part of the strategic plan, so we're really all about creating space to belong, and more specifically, cultivating an inclusive and welcoming environment. And so our 9-person committee has really been focused on ensuring accessibility as well as inclusivity for all. And this year, we're really looking at ways of streamlining our processes so that we're creating a consistent experience across all the different departments of the library. And I'm very excited to report on that because we really have launched a number of different volunteer roles and making great strides there. We're building on our existing programs. So when we talk about the relaunch, we did relaunch this year, but we have a really strong program that was kind of that foundation for us. So there have been volunteers that have been here for many a year, but we hadn't brought anybody new on since 2024. So that's what the relaunch is really all about. So right now we're focusing on finding meaningful new ways to bring volunteers into the library, as well as supporting the staff and finding ways to enhance what they're doing and create bigger, better programs. So over the past 9 months, we have been hard at work really streamlining our processes. So one of the biggest elements of that was revamping our application form. We've also worked on the interview process, our placement process, our onboarding, and then we're also developing a stronger network of ongoing support, both for our volunteers as well as for the supervisors. We've also updated some of our resources. So one of the biggest lifts has been updating our volunteer handbook. So that is new and recently reviewed by the attorneys so that we are starting to roll that out to our volunteers this month. We opened up our volunteer application in April, and when we opened it up, we had a wait list, if you will, of 100 different patrons who had reached out to the library interested in volunteering. So I had the pleasure of contacting the majority of them and letting them know that the program had opened back up. We got 26 applications to date this year, and each of those individuals has been offered an interview, which is, I think, a really great aspect of this program, is that the library has that interaction with each and every candidate. And then we have placed 11 of those candidates thus far, and there's a few more that are in the pipeline that will also be placed. So we do our best to find fits. And where we don't find a fit, I'm kind of in touch with those individuals to see if we can find them something in the future. And I have to say, I've just been blown away. We have a very talented community, broad and unique skill sets, and it's been a joy to really interact with them and learn more about their stories. And I've also had the opportunity to talk with a lot of our current volunteers, and they've all got great stories. People have come to the library to volunteer for a lot of different reasons. But the one, I think, consistent thread is that they all do feel like they belong here once they've gotten it to be part of the volunteer program, no matter which department it is, no matter who they're working with as a volunteer supervisor. So that's been really great. I wanted to tell you guys a little bit more about some of the specific positions that we have, and I'm gonna just look at my notes because there's so many that sometimes I'm like, wait. So a few of them that we are continuing to support, these are kind of like our legacy programs, are our adult services collections volunteers. And we have 3 volunteers who've been coming in for several years, and they help with like sorting books, shifting books, weeding books, and other special projects that we have. And so that has been going on. That's 3 very steady volunteers, which is fantastic. We also have someone who's been coming in for several years to help our circulation team with cleaning off our AV discs to prolong the lifespan of our materials. And then our home delivery program, we have a handful of volunteers who come in. They come in twice a week and deliver the materials to our patrons. And we have added 1 new person to that group this year. And then Little Free Library, we have 3 individuals who go out to 10 different locations now in Northbrook and restock Little Free Library on behalf of the library. And some of that is in conjunction with the Park District as well. So that's a nice connection. And then we have Northbrook Repairs, which is the twice-a-year repair cafe. And we have 3 new volunteers who joined Northbrook Repairs as of May. So that's fantastic. And we have actually a 4th that will join in November. So that's exciting because the process in which we're reaching out to those Northbrook Repairs volunteers is different. So we're kind of bringing new people into the fold, which is fantastic. We also have a number of new opportunities that we launched this year. And so there are 4 of them that are up and running as of today. We started recruiting back in April, and they have been volunteering for a couple of months. So one is the microphone runner position, and that actually was developed along with Ariel and her events production team. And we have people who are coming in and helping to streamline the Q&A process after our first run films. And so that's been great. It was a way to get someone in from high school who was interested in ongoing volunteering, as well as another individual. We, within youth services, have a volunteer who is handling who is partnering as part of our Korean Storytime to select themes, books, music, and activities. And then we have a transcription volunteer, and this was one of the really fun new positions. We have in our partnership with the Northbrook Historical Society, we are conducting the oral history project, Northbrook Voices, and there were a number of them that didn't have any sort of a transcription that could go along with the recording. I was thinking maybe we could find someone who was an old court stenographer. I had all these thoughts. I'm sure we can find the right person. And it actually ended up being a really popular application opportunity for high schoolers because we had a few journalists who are interested in it. So right now we have someone who's a rising junior at GBN who is coming in weekly to transcribe Northbrook Voices, and that's been a really great success, and the team really enjoys working with her. And then the last program that's up and running that's really exciting is our technology programs. And so our technology programs, it's essentially individuals with a technology background who are coming in and functioning as a teacher's aide. And so they're kind of helping the instructor to keep everyone on track. If someone were to fall behind in an activity, they can go and help them, give them a little one-on-one attention. And they're also part of kind of the class dialogue. And so that's been really great to see the technology teams working alongside the volunteers. And they're very excited. In fact, they just shared their spreadsheet for what the programs they'd like to include volunteers in this coming session, and it's gotten probably doubled versus last time. So they're really seeing a lot of benefit from this, and it's a great way for these individuals who have really deep technological skills to be able to give back to the library. The other piece of this is pretty cool, is that we're using that same model for maker services. So actually starting in the fall, we're going to have some makers who come in and help to support the individual programs that are offered by maker services. And these are unique programs because every single class is a different focus, and every class is taught at a unique time. So there's not a standard schedule, there's not a standard topic, but we've developed a form that helps people to claim classes. And so we can do the same thing in maker services, which is really exciting because this is a great way for people to be able to be more involved in the library with different skill sets. The other thing that's been cool is that we've connected with our community in new ways. So for example, District 30, which just coincidentally, truly coincidentally, is my home district. They reached out with an interest in bringing a summer school class to volunteer at the library. So what we did was we created an opportunity for those students to come in. They were 11, 12, and 13-year-olds. They came in and they created cards for our homebound patrons, which then we turned over to the home delivery team, and they were delivered alongside the books and other materials about 2 weeks ago. And we've actually already gotten a thank you note back from one of the patrons. So it's such a nice intergenerational and collaborative effort, bringing a number of people together and really, again, deepening that sense of belonging. Looking forward, we have several more positions that are launching. So we've kind of done a phased approach. So we had some that launched in April, we have a few that launched this summer, and then we have a few more that are coming up in the fall. And right now, we are in almost every department of the library, and my hope is that by the end of the year, we will be in every department in the library. So it's just an exciting time, and it's really been a joy for me because all the individuals who come to us as volunteers are so eager to participate. They want to give back to the library. They're so happy to find a fit. And the staff has really, I think, embraced this opportunity to bring the volunteers in and truly welcome them in a new and unique way. So thank you for letting me come and talk about this program. And if anybody has any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
At one point, we talked about a human library.
We did.
And, but the human library meaning that everybody has a story.
Yeah.
And offering opportunities for people who are willing to share their story, a pre-approved story, and for people to come in and say, I'd like to talk to that person who experienced the Holocaust, or I'd like to talk to that person who has taught in the inner city. And it's an ongoing model in many places. And you're mentioning that the people you're meeting have their own stories.
They sure do, yeah.
And it'd be something I think would be a nice fit, and the volunteer aspect of it.
Yeah, I'd love to learn more about that.
We can follow up on that, and I can share with you, Susan, how, and I and Kelly have talked about it. It's been a couple years, so it would be, yeah. So we can definitely fill you in.
Sounds good.
You know, you mentioned different tasks and roles volunteers were participating in. All in, how many volunteers do we have right now?
We have 28 right now.
Right now,
Yeah.
and we'll be growing.
Yeah,
And it
and we
doesn't
had.
include the teens. The teen
Oh, yes,
volunteer summer
absolutely,
program.
that's right,
Yeah.
that it does not include the teen advisory board, and it does not include the,
Teen summer
teen,
program.
the high school summer program. We do have 2 volunteers who do 2 jobs, so it's almost as if we had 20 volunteers. But yes, and, I'm sorry, 30 volunteers, almost as if we have 30 volunteers. We were at 18 at the beginning of the year.
I think the keys to a successful volunteer program are, defining opportunities that are not just make work, that actually serve the needs of the institution and make the volunteers feel like they are really contributing and, simply paying attention and making, making sure there is a good fit and yes, interviewing folks who would like to volunteer to make sure that it is a good fit. And so I'm very excited about this. I think it can only grow. So.
I think one of the things that Janelle has done really well is with working with the volunteer committee that she chairs, that we have someone from each department, because it isn't just her coming up with these ideas. It's about everyone across the library and those people in each department championing this and thinking about what are unique things that we could bring people in, what are areas of expertise that we maybe could benefit, that we would enhance something that we're already doing. And she's really, I think, done a great job of pacing so that staff will get on board and are, as she's mentioned, has continuing to come up with more and more ideas. So I think we'll just continue to see this blossom.
In terms of our youth volunteers, what kind of formal recognition or documentation do we provide them that helps them be able to communicate the value that they're creating or the savings that they've provided the library that can support their own efforts? I'm thinking college applications.
Yeah.
Do we do
Kelly,
anything like that?
Is that anything that you're aware of in terms of the recognition at the end of the summer high school program?
Yes, we do a recognition. We used to do a party, and it was hard to get the majority of the kids there. And so now it's a thank you note and gift cards go out to the teen volunteers.
And our teen librarian does a lot of personal reference letters for staff, for
Wonderful.
teens
Yeah.
wanting to, for
That's what I
applying
was-
for scholarships and doing different things. We also track their forms. We use a software program called Logistics, so we can actually track and provide them with, here's how many hours you spent helping with chess club. Here's, how many summers you've been here. That I know Stephanie does provide. We don't do that as a matter of course. It's more on request, but that is something that I know she spends a fair amount of time doing and does get a lot of requests. So,
Yeah.
If there are ways that we can, like that, help them communicate the value that they've created.
Yeah.
Because it's easier for us to have that language than
they haven't
students
learned how to
that
have that
haven't.
language
Yeah,
yet.
right.
Yeah.
And I think that's a point well taken as well, because one of the things that we do offer to the ongoing volunteers is, of course, also a letter that includes the number of hours that they have donated, essentially, to the library. And so I think you're right that they're putting a bit more thought and a bit of language to that to really enhance it. So it's not just the number of hours, but it's the impact that they made on the library. I think that's fantastic.
Yeah.
So I will take that and see what we can do to evolve what we have.
On average, how many hours is the adult volunteers spending a week at the library?
Well, that's an interesting one. So we do, it really does vary. So our Northbrook Repairs volunteers come in for probably, I'm trying to remember, that event is going to be 2.5 hours. So they come in maybe 5 hours all year long. But our most frequent volunteers would come in for about 2 hours a week. That's the most typical. But that's been one of the things that's been very interesting is that we're trying to get away from that mindset that it needs to be 2 hours a week. And so, for example, we're working on something with circulation right now, and we're doing something that's going to be more, come in every 2 weeks. What we're doing with the events production team is come in once a month for this Saturday program. So it's been kind of interesting to see how once we create more flexible opportunities, then we can sometimes find a better pairing with an opening within a department. So, but I'd say 2 hours would be for your typical volunteer, how often they would come.
Great program.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Janelle? Janelle, thank you so much for being here.
I appreciate it. Good to see you guys.
So a couple other things for my report. I know that everyone is very aware of this, but the 4th of July parade was canceled due to weather, which was unfortunate because it would have been amazing. And we had about 20 staff signed up. We also had, although Nina's mom said they're going to come next year, we had a 5th grader who had reached out to Linda who wanted to dress up as George Washington and walk with us in the parade. Oh. I know, but he is ready. I was like, we will make sure that the costume fits next year, and he will be ready to go. So even though we didn't get to do it, we are very much looking forward to going back and hopefully not having weather, although, who knows? And so on the note of weather, I did want to talk just a little bit more about what we're experiencing right now with the air quality and how we are approaching it in addition to the email that I sent the board this afternoon. Northbrook is in an especially hazardous area, I guess you would say, according to the ratings on the Air Now government website. So we have been monitoring, and of course we've had the wildfires, smoke happen in previous years. It hasn't ever been to this extent. There isn't really anything out there that says, oh, here, library, close at this time, or cancel programmings here, or make sure that staff aren't going outside to empty book drops if it's at this time. So we don't have any guidelines around how to approach this. So Kelly and Becky and I sat down today and talked through what that would look like using our severe weather guidelines as our baseline to kind of think about how do we approach it. So we looked for what data and information is out there. What do we know to be true? What are things that we can do in the building and with staff to mitigate some of the impacts, recognizing that this impacts different staff differently based on different health considerations. And so we worked with facilities to change some of the airflow and dampen the amount of outside air coming in, changing how wide the doors are opening, putting out masks. So those are all kind of stopgap measures. And then look to see, like, what does this look like? Are there any local, state, or federal regulations that kind of give us some guidance? And so there are some things, but it is not, I would like to do more digging. Kelly and I have talked about this too. We know that this is going to continue happening over this summer as well as most likely future summers. And so we need to have, I want us to have a strong process for how we determine how to decide what we're doing in these instances. Like, we canceled all of our programming for tomorrow because it says that you should not be doing even inside strenuous activity. So does chair yoga and story time count? We did for safety, cancel chair yoga, story time, and drop-in mahjong. Because it is still supposed to be very unhealthy tomorrow. And so this is something that we're going to continue looking at. We also, because of the board's approval of continuing working with Jaffe and coming on as brain just stopped. Crisis. Kelly, what are the
Yeah,
words?
so we have a Joffrey membership, which gives us access to their crisis hotline, which we called today and got a lot of great advice in terms of, one of our big questions was we want to be open to the public as a space that people may need to retreat to if they're having issues with their own air conditioning units or Wi-Fi access, while keeping in mind how important it is to keep staff safe. I don't know, you can't really smell it in here, but in other parts of the building, you can definitely smell the smoke. And so we were also a little bit worried about our own air quality and how do we measure that. And Jason, our facilities manager, was in on that call and kind of talked through what he had done, and Jaffe confirmed like we had done everything that we could. How do we measure if the building's air quality is safe is really by observing how the air is affecting people within the building. And so we have done 2 walkthroughs tonight to see how staff and patrons are feeling, and have asked managers to keep us informed that if they're noticing that people are experiencing a lot of discomfort while they're in the library, that will be an indication that our air quality is not where it needs to be. So it was really helpful to be able to talk through that. And they also kind of reiterated what we had already been thinking of, like it's very important for us to stay open unless the air quality is such that it's not safe to be in the building, but also confirmed what we were thinking about with programming, that we want to keep the library building and doing its essential functions, but not necessarily doing anything above and beyond that would invite people to leave their homes or to be outside when it's not safe to do so.
Yeah. And the other thing that we have focused on during other severe weather that we focused on, and that Jaffe was like, this is also a best practice, is focusing on encouraging staff to take ownership of their own individual needs. So if they themselves, like while we might be remaining open and doing all of our normal business, they themselves might have other factors that they need to consider. And so then how do we make sure that they are taking care of themselves, and that they should be talking with their manager, talking with HR, and we will work with them on addressing that and making sure that they can work or go home and do what is needed to make sure that they can take care of their own health and well-being. So we do plan to update our severe weather guidelines and have things more written out. There's a number of different regulations that also impact things. We learned a lot more today about OSHA and the International Mechanical Code. Yep. And so it's just, fascinating stuff. And I'm not going to go into that for you, but we, my assumption, and we'll continue as we do in any weather situation, is I will continue monitoring, update the board if there are going to be any changes. One thing that I thought Jaffe did a really good job of helping us think through was not taking everything as an all or nothing. We're either open or we're closed. But like we know that throughout the day, the air quality has continued to degrade. So if this happens again, maybe it isn't that we are closed or even that we're canceling programs. Maybe morning programs are fine, but then we maybe go to a skeleton crew in the later afternoon, or we close at 6 instead of 9. There are layers that we can think about from a safety perspective, and it doesn't have to be extremes. Also thinking about different areas of the library. As Kelly mentioned, there are certain parts of the library, the collaboratory being one of them, where the smoke smell is much more pronounced. And so, again, that is more of an enclosed space. Opening the doors, thinking about what we can do. Jason had been monitoring it carefully throughout the day. But is that something that we say, okay, we're not going to maybe have this space open, or some of the equipment could be moved outside? Now I'm just talking about stuff that we haven't talked about yet, that I don't even know if it would make sense. But what I'm trying to impart is that we want to make sure that the board knows that we're considering lots of different factors. I do not want us to close unnecessarily, as Kelly said, and I also want us to make sure we're doing everything we can to keep patrons and staff safe. And though I did take a class on weather, I am not a meteorologist, but I'm happy to answer any questions about our process or any follow-up that anyone has.
I think it's important that I appreciate the fact that we are sort of a space where people who don't have air conditioning, or
Yes.
maybe their air conditioning is out, can come. I think that's very important that as a
Yes.
public space that we provide that for as long as we can.
Yes.
I'm not sure why we would need to necessarily cancel programming. I mean, if whoever's presenting the programming, if they didn't feel comfortable leaving their house, maybe that would be a reason, but unless it's something that's going to really exert people, it doesn't seem necessary to cancel programming. I think it seems a little extreme, and I think we're providing masks, so if the patrons want to come and wear masks or something like that, that probably, it seems like that would be sufficient. I feel like we might be overreacting by canceling things. It certainly, I mean, the option is there, but I think it's important that we stay open, and I'm not sure about, I don't know what we're doing to measure the air quality in the building, but I think that if we are gonna close or talk about closing, we can't just rely on sort of like feelings or like just
Agreed.
sort of
Yeah.
a walkthrough survey. I think it's
Yeah.
gotta be a little bit more scientific, you know.
I was talking with a staff member when I was eating dinner tonight, and I was like, I know there has to be things that we can acquire, that we can get, that can measure that. I reached out to a firefighter that I'm friends with. I'm like, there has to be easy things that we as lay people could be able to use to measure things. So I don't have an answer
Right.
to that yet, but there has to be something.
And I would think that
that we could
filtration on
use.
the library is better than any of our home air filtration systems. So we're
Yes,
probably
and we
better off
also
doing
talked
it.
about, even in the future, for the summer, if this is gonna continue to be a thing, to up our filters just for the summer, just to have an even higher level of filtration for this.
I'm fairly confident that there are such tools.
Yeah, I mean,
we
right, there has-
certainly
I just haven't had a
we have
chance
things
to-
like that in our schools.
Yeah.
Yeah, so.
Oh,
I don't
okay,
think the-
so
I don't think
reach
the
out to the
camp, I don't think
students.
the camps, the Park District camps have canceled for the.
No, they certainly haven't.
They moved indoors.
They moved indoors, right, but they
Yes.
haven't canceled.
Yeah, and I just looked at a couple of other libraries, social media. Deerfield moved an outdoor story time indoors, but no one else has announced
Yeah.
cancellation of any programs or
Yeah.
events.
And I think it goes back to what Maura was saying, and what you said about staff. People who are signed up for the program can decide for themselves whether they feel that they're able to do it or it's too much.
Yeah, I think that makes total sense. I will say with story times, and this is something that I know Kelly spoke with youth services, the staff are the ones running story time, and story time is highly energetic, lots of dancing, moving, and so I think that that would be an instance where we would want to take into account staff members who are running that and the
Or
air quality.
adapt what they're doing.
Yeah.
They can
Yeah.
adapt, so it's not so energetic, and so you could have quiet stories. I just think that
Yeah.
we need to be careful when we start canceling things without.
I agree. I think it sends confusing messaging that the library is open, but we don't want you to come for this thing
Yeah.
that to them might feel passive, but, and I've heard story time from a study room, but not participated, shocking. But again, their own comfort level of if they want to go. And if we're saying this is a building that is air conditioned and comfortable for you to come to, we're also now putting out things that say, but don't come for story time, don't come for chair yoga, without an explanation of, we're worried about physical exertion.
And I think especially considering the kids who, if it was a lovely day, those kids can't go to the park on a day like today, so it gives them something to do so that they're, you know, that they have some activity, so I think it becomes that much more vital to keep the programming in place if we can.
Another comment, you mentioned you have sort of an extreme weather policy
It's not a policy, just guidelines.
guidelines. Could this be sort of a bolt-on?
Yeah, that's what we're gonna do.
Okay, that's
Yeah.
so it's separate. And then, since we're dealing with it real time,
Yeah.
tomorrow morning, it's probably not going to dissipate until maybe late afternoon. Are you
Correct.
getting a lot of feedback from your staff and concerns about coming in the morning?
I wouldn't call it concerns. I've had lots of questions. are we opening tomorrow? What time are staff going to be expected to be in? When will we know? How are you going to inform us? And the message I have given everyone is we expect it to be dissipating by the time we open, not to the level that it's good, but to not be hazardous anymore. And so we have no plans at this point to not be open. However, if that changes, your manager would be informed and would be reaching out. So that is something. Jason, our facilities manager, will be coming in tomorrow morning at about 6 and will be giving me a call to update me on the state of the building at that point and what things are like. He's going to run the fans hopefully for longer to help move anything that had come in the evening out so that we're in good shape for that. So yes.
And maybe let the community know, after you've set the policy that, we're here for you and this is a safe place.
Yes.
And we welcome you. I think that it's something that people will be very proud of and relieved to know.
Yes, and Linda did actually post something earlier today before we made any decisions, reminding people of that. And I haven't looked, Kelly worked with Linda, and I don't know what the banner on the website says, but I know we have a banner on the website, which,
Yeah, that's why
Is-
they
yeah.
mentioned something about the fact that we're open and.
yeah, we're
air
open, and
conditioning
yeah,
and-
so, so yes, we can definitely reinforce that. We also expect that we're gonna get a lot of phone calls, and so we prep staff for, yes, we're here, we're excited, come on in. Maybe not excited, we're here. I don't think anyone's excited to be out in this weather, but people are, so yeah. Oh, it doesn't say, okay. We're gonna update the banner on the website. Right.
It says a message about the programs being canceled.
Yeah. Any other questions on that or any other part of my report?
I would just add to this conversation when we're talking about the master plan and as we're, thinking about redesigning of spaces, this would be valuable information to be able to share, not necessarily a determinative piece of data, but,
Making
not-
sure that our
does
entire
not put-
HVAC system is integrated and that we can easily
Yeah.
monitor and control and
Right.
keep the building air
Yeah.
quality high.
Right.
Yeah, that's a great, excellent point. Yeah.
While
Thanks,
we're,
Adam.
yeah,
Yeah.
while we crack this thing open, that's,
Yeah, it's,
now's the time to think
Good
about it.
point.
yeah. Anything else about Kate's report? Okay, moving into board member reports.
Well, on Monday evening, I dropped by to attend the presentation by the village's animal control officer, Gina Mansky. And I think it might be one of the first times that when I arrived, there was almost a line out the door of folks who wanted to attend. And Jill was doing a fabulous job checking everybody in, and lots of overflow folks who had not signed up, but who wished to attend. They were sitting to one side, waiting to see if they could get in. And I could see why. I knew it would be an interesting presentation, and it certainly was. Gina has worked for the village since, I believe, 2004, so she has decades of experience with not only the wildlife that naturally lives in Northbrook, but wildlife that shows up here in Northbrook because people dump it or bring it or, and the various kinds of animals that she has found in people's homes, including an alligator. Illegal, by the way, if you were planning on that. And people were absolutely riveted. In fact, it went over by about 15 minutes because people had so many questions and she had so much to share. So,
And we've had multiple asks for a repeat.
oh my goodness, yes, it was just fascinating. Yeah, so I loved it.
We had possums, foxes, and raccoons in our backyard within like a 2-week period, and we have a fully fenced-in yard, and it's not It's 2 blocks from here.
Wow.
Yeah. And a dog who apparently isn't doing her job, so.
Time to put the dog on the plan.
Watch out.
Right.
Awesome, that.
I, in June, had the opportunity to attend the American Library Association conference and went all in and attended the whole conference, which was a wild ride. The sessions were incredible, lots of good conversations about partnering with the broader community, being a good advocate for local libraries, how the library can fit into a thriving economy of a village or town. And then, of course, we've talked previously in here about the exhibit hall and the free books, and that was mayhem in the best, nerdiest possible way. People lining up to get signed copies of books and to meet authors. I lined up to get my picture taken with Elephant and Piggy of Elephant and Piggy fame.
I know, right?
I really had to up my street cred with the 5-year-old niece, and it worked. So it comes back to Chicago every 3 years. I would encourage you, if you are on the board again or still part of your term, to consider going. You can get an exhibits only pass. You don't have to do the conference, and they also do daily passes. It was great. Also got to meet a couple of other trustees from other libraries and connect with them. And then Kate's staff report mentioned that in June, we went, actually the same day ALA started, because why wouldn't we do all the things in one
Sure,
day?
100%.
We had an opportunity to meet with Julie Morrison, Bob Morgan, and Tracy Katz-Mull, and wanted to share that in full transparency. I spoke at that very briefly. We were each given a chance to talk about the importance of the state requiring library trustee training to even the playing field in terms of what trustees know and what they bring to the table. I also candidly pointed out the disparity between how school board members are treated in the state and how library board members are treated in terms of training and recognition, which is something Tracy and I had previously talked about. And Kate and Kelly also talked about safety and security and renovation. So it was a good conversation and opportunity to advocate for some things that we need here at Northbrook that I selfishly want.
But then it will also benefit the entire community.
Yes.
Did you say it's coming back in 3 years too, but Cormac plays? Okay.
Every
Yeah.
3 years, they come home because ALA is headquartered in Chicago. Anything else for board reports? Okay, moving into unfinished business. First up, we have an update on the master plan project.
So we are still, as I pointed out in my report, on schedule for the master plan. So we are at the point now where we are finalizing a range of plans to bring to the board next month. We're going to be meeting, the architects are meeting with staff, department by department, next week. No, the 29th, that's not next week, in about 2 weeks on the 29th. And they will be going over, again, these preliminary ideas. We have currently 3 separate plans. A couple of the plans have like a couple options within each one. And so we will be bringing those to the board in August. I do have a meeting also scheduled with the village. Anna and I have a meeting scheduled with the village manager and village CFO, but they were not able to meet with us until early August. So I don't have any updates on the bond issuance process, but we'll hopefully have more for the August board meeting when the architects are here and we're talking with them. We have, so we're kind of in the phase of, we're doing a lot of information gathering, refining the plans. We are focused on getting information about if we do need to do like a, shift off-site for all or part, what would that look like? We're working with Pepper, who said that they can pull numbers for us. We've talked, Kelly has gathered information from a couple libraries. I've gotten some information, so now I'm just synthesizing all of it. We're also focusing heavily right now on analyzing the collection data that we've gotten from selectors as well as from our data dashboard to determine what collection sizes will be needed and where we will need to expand or retract based on community needs and usage. So a lot of back-end stuff, but very excited about next month. And I did want to show you a couple plans that we will not be presenting next month, just to kind of show you a little precursor and kind of some of the things that we've been thinking about in line with the feedback. So I am going to go up to the front because I know I'm going to want to get up and point at things. So So, pause please while the computer does its computering. It wants me to do it again. There we go. Okay, so this is our existing building. One of the things that, and this is the first floor, so we're not really going to spend more than like a second on this. But this shows where the elevator and stairs are because this does play into some of the stuff we're going to be looking at in the future. Why isn't...
It's not responding.
Oh, there. Okay, so the two things that I wanted to show you, do you need it to be bigger?
I'm just gonna move up.
Okay, all right, sorry. So one of the things that was talked about a couple board meetings ago was we talked a lot about youth services and safety and where ideally would we put a youth services department. This was also something that the staff were really curious, could this be something we could do? And so we brought it down to youth services. This removes the Pollock room. It doesn't get rid of it. It would just go up to the second floor. And as you can see here, it is, and this is pretty light, but the dotted line is the existing building. And that's not right. That's from the,
It's second floor, right?
that's the second floor building. I was like gonna say, wait, this is the existing first floor building, this dotted line right here. This is currently right where people come in. And so this would mean taking out the driveway to go under, and we would also lose, they said anywhere from like 6 to 10 parking spots. Also, the biggest issue with keeping this down here is that it's 9,000 square feet, which is the exact same size it is now. So we would not gain any additional space, which is something that we have identified as being a significant need and has been asked for in the community. So everyone agrees this would be ideal from a safety, people movement, just where people expect children's departments to be. And with our existing building, it is not feasible with the existing layout. Unless, again, we were to remove the auditorium and civic, which we all agree is also a non-negotiable. That is not something that we would consider. So this is, I think, a great example to show kind of how we're thinking of things and trying things out. And I find it very helpful because I'm like, oh, maybe the first floor, like maybe it could work. And then as soon as I saw this, I'm like, oh, well, that's not going to work. And so this is one of the ones. And then this,
Why are we looking at things that don't work?
we are looking at things that don't work because I want you to see some of the things we've thought of so that next month when we show it to you, you understand where we've come from to where we are. Because I'll just speak bluntly. In the past, when we brought things, they've like, but you didn't think about this. And we're like, no, we did. And so we want you to know that we have thought about a lot of these things and that the ones we're bringing you are after we've ruled out things that are really non-viable. But I also want you to explain, to know why they're non-viable, because I also anticipate once whatever plan is chosen, people in the community are going to be like, why didn't you put the youth services department on the first floor? That would have been so much better. And then you can say, oh, well, we actually looked at that very carefully, and this is why. So those are the reasons.
I think that it must be the smoke. I'm going to be blunt too.
Sure,
is
please.
that I trust that
Yes.
what you're going to bring as options will have considered a lot of things. I am not an architect. I will not remember anything that you have basically said about the size of anything.
Okay.
It has no meaning to me in terms of where I'm going to put it on my scaffold. And so I guess I'm saying.
You don't need this.
I don't need this. I think it's
Maura does.
I will speak to the opposing viewpoint. I know exactly what you mean. people often will sort of second guess or, say, well, you didn't consider this and you didn't consider that. And I think if for no other reason than being able to tell any member of the public or patron, yes, we did, I think it is useful for the board to know the thinking process and and the reasons why certain options were not selected.
I think it's also helpful to remember that we haven't talked publicly about the renovation. I mean, we've talked publicly about it, but we haven't talked like to the community about it. And as we start to do that more, people may come back and watch some of these recordings to see what we saw and the conversations we had. So Arielle is giving up her Thursday evening to record this so that the members of the public and our adoring fans can watch it later, all 5 of them.
I think it's also helpful because there is a pretty big gap between the last time we looked at
Yes.
preliminary floor plans and then in August. And I'm not saying that it's taking the architects too long by any means. I'm just saying it's helpful to sort of see what the
Right.
conversations
Yes.
have been and to know that, to sort of remind ourselves of what's
Yes.
going on because there is a long.
She's not going to wait.
But Barbara, what I'm hearing you say is you're not going to remember these details. And so if the piece of it is you being able to respond in the community, that it would be beneficial for us to have some very clear, succinct talking points for board members to be able to respond easily to questions like this.
That would be very helpful.
I think that would be, yeah.
Okay, we will do that.
Because
That.
I'm not going to remember.
I also
Great.
think as we continue to develop the website and start to put.
Absolutely.
Start to put master plan information there, that is the most helpful place.
Correct. Agreed. And if this goes, like, Kelly and I were talking yesterday about like, Kelly's like, do I need to keep every iteration of every single one of these? And I'm like, no, you don't. But I am going to because I have notes on every single one of them of why we did this and details and so that I can look back. If any board member wants at any time to see all of those and to see every iteration, I am happy. I am happy to sit down. I'm happy to send them to you guys. I don't, again, trying not to overload you with information, but also know that you can ask for any of the information at any time, and Anna or I are happy to provide it. So, Maura, I will make a note to.
I don't need to see it, but it's.
No, but I will send it
Like
because I know
knowing
that
it's
you
there.
will enjoy it, and to see, yeah, the progress.
With those talking points too, it's
Yes.
much hard data that you can include, like getting rid of the, 6 parking spots means 1,500 less visits per week. Those kind of data points will be really helpful.
Yeah, like our parking lot is already not large enough.
Right.
This would make it worse, and then, so think about when you're coming for instance, like an auditorium program,
Right.
and there
Exactly.
also is a community group meeting in the interactive classroom, and they're like, why can't I find any space? Well, because we have 200 people watching a film in the auditorium. So yes,
That's going to be the kind of data that
Yep.
will help
help inform.
help get people comfortable with decisions that are
Yes.
different from the choices that they would want to
Yes,
make.
yes. 100%. So this is the second and final drawing that I'm going to show you guys tonight. And this shows the shift in the stairway and elevators, which as we've talked about, you'll see next month, those are some of the more expensive pieces, so those are going to be more of like the do we add, do we not do? But in this instance, we do move the elevators next to each other, make them both open to the public, make the stairs change direction, so it's opening up into a marketplace. And then these are, as you can see, not detailed at all, but it's like we're going to have the adult services, nonfiction, AV, and fiction all on the second floor. We're going to have the collaboratory still front and center. We're going to put staff spaces here. We're going to have program and study rooms here. So then this floor becomes a slightly, I don't want to say more subdued, but like a slightly more focused on adults floor. And then seeing youth services, they're gaining 3,500 square feet moving up here. They were able to put a small staff workroom up there, so a staff member wouldn't have to be like up there by themselves. They could have backup up there, or there could be 2 people on desk and a backup. So from giving youth services more space, having it be in a confined area, which we all agreed would be really great, would be wonderful. But as we have discussed, having youth services on the 3rd floor means even if we change the stairs, coming up 2 sets of stairs, even if we have 2 patron elevators, it means when we have 100 people for story time and 20 strollers, getting those 20 strollers all up within a 10-minute window. And as Maura pointed out, I know she and a number of board members also have life safety concerns with this. And so this was one that even though we had decided we don't want to do this, when you look at it just based on logic and not on how people use it, it makes a lot of sense. But based on actually moving people through the library, it no longer makes sense, which is why you will see youth services on the 2nd floor in the drawings that you will see next month in different areas, in different configurations, thinking again about acoustics and how people move. This was obviously very heavily focused on the feedback we got about acoustics and helping make sure that we have more defined noise zones. So that is another thing that we've said no to, and a little bit more of the reasoning why. And next month, you'll see things that we haven't said yes to, but that we have said maybe, and look forward to talking more with you. Questions on this or on the other in terms of why or wanting additional information?
On the first floor, concept, I just want to make sure I understand. So, but the main drawback on not putting youth services on the main floor was because of a square footage issue, and that would be like teen and youth combined?
So this would not be teen
Just
and youth.
Okay.
And that is another issue. Youth services really wants to have teen near them because the teen librarian is part of youth services. So then there would also be operational decisions of do we move, but that is not really the reason we could figure all of that out. But it is because the square footage, which is the 9,000 square feet is just youth, that doesn't include teen right now, would be exactly the same. And in addition, it would take out multiple parking spots. And it wouldn't give us, one of the things we talked about is we could make the entryway a little bit wider, a little bit more welcoming, but it wouldn't really be able to do a whole lot with that. So again, the trade-offs do not seem worth it. And you got this lovely fire stairway just right in the middle. Like, okay. And then moving that would also be, because that's not just the stairway, that's the fire-rated walls and all that fun stuff. So, other questions?
It was very interesting, thank you.
You're very welcome, Barbara. I look forward to creating talking points for everyone. And we are planning to have the website up in September, so it'll be ready when the board makes a hopeful decision at the September meeting.
Yeah, I just wanted to add, 'cause I know we saw an example of a area library, and which one is escaping me? They had a really detailed FAQ on the library renovation.
They're phenomenal.
And so I think even putting in something like moving youth services to 3rd floor, having first floor, I
Yes.
think that would help the community
Yes.
a lot.
So I've been making a list, and we will have an FAQ that we expect will expand. And Linda and I have been talking about just because managing FAQs can be, overwhelming. So kind of having it broken up by different parts of the project so that people could be like, well, what did they consider in the design? Well, why is construction taking so long? Kind of stuff, right? Any other questions? Okay, great. Moving into new business, quarterly strategic plan report check-in. So as I mentioned in the quarterly report check-in, we have this year made substantial progress on multiple goals, including reviewing security operations, moving our internet service provider, getting the report from Lily Zhang, and Becky has worked on rolling out next steps and incorporating those into the strategic plan. Kelly has done the work on upgrading our alarms, door locks, and cameras. You heard from Janelle tonight about the volunteer program. Next month, you're going to be hearing from Linnell Lindbergh, who's our adult services supervisor, about the programming we've been doing around AI. And then we also have done a tremendous amount of programming around civil civic engagement, which I think the Human Library really fits into, just as a. And so we have made substantial progress, which is good because it's July, and we do this on a calendar year basis. There's also a lot of behind-the-scenes work happening on our collection development policy. Obviously, you know about the master facilities plan. Also working on the data training and using that data training from Mallory Edgar with Fifth Star Collective in our work, and so we're using that in our strategic planning processes as well as in department programs and projects. And then the website, which Linda has been working on, which will be rolling out this fall as well. And so we continue to focus a lot and are making significant progress on our goals, and I look forward to giving the board another update in another 3 months and reflecting at the end of the year on things. And happy to answer if anyone has any questions about anything that was in the report. Great.
Amazing. Seeing none, we will move on. We do not have closed session this evening. In terms of agenda for next month, we will be discussing the master plan project update. I know that shocks you because that's what we discuss every month. And we will also be learning about AI efforts at the library. Is there anything anyone else would like to add to next month's agenda?
Will there be a follow-up to the safety measures?
I could certainly, yeah. Would you like me to, is the board interested in learning about that sooner? Or would you like me to just include it in my report next month?
I would just like, I think, whatever you feel is most important for us to know, but I think it's such a good idea to formalize some of that.
Yes, yes. I'll include it in my report next month.
And if there is nothing else, we will adjourn at 8:03 p.m. Wow.